Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. So in today's tutorial I'll be sharing with you guys how to make an off shoulder top with two steps, puff sleeve and a curved waistline. So this channel is centered around sewing. I make sewing tutorial videos and pattern drafting, and if you're here to subscribe to my channel, please kindly do so. So to start with the drafting of this dress, you are meant to draft a basic bodice first. So from that top part of my paper, I'm just going to mark 3/4 of an inch, which after marking I'll go ahead and connect with a straight ruler. I'm going to divide my shoulder 14 inches into two, and I'll go ahead to mark what I have, and from that point I'm coming down by 8 inches, and that is going to be my armhole line. So I'm just going to connect these 2 points together like this, and I'll also go ahead and make a straight line like this as well. So after this, now I'll go ahead now and mark my neck width of 3 inches and my neck depth of 3 inches. So I'll use my curved rule and connect that like this, so you can see what it looks like, right? So I'll come to that my armhole line and divide it into two, and whatever I have, I'm going to make a point at the middle there, and on this line I'm just going to divide my bust circumference by 4. Whatever I got, I made sure I marked it there. So the next thing, at that point I made on my armhole line, I'm going to come in by half of an inch just like I did, and the next thing I'm going to do is to connect these dotted lines all together into my shoulder line, which is the first line I drew at the top part of this my paper. So having done that, I'll go ahead now to input my other measurements respectively, such as my bust point, my under bust, my half length and my top length respectively. So I'll just connect all of this into a straight line. So after this, I'll go ahead and label all of these parts so you try to get what I mean here. So the HL, which is half length, is also your waistline. So from my top length, I'm going to mark 1 inch, and that will be my hemming allowance. So I'll just go ahead now and label that part my allowance. So we have 1 inch hemming allowance for this beautiful top. So after this, now we are going to determine how deep you want your shoulder to be, because this is an off shoulder. So my client says she wants hers to be very high, so I went ahead to mark 5 inches, and I connected that into a straight line like this. So the next thing you go ahead to do is to divide your nipple into two, and you're going to make dots on all these lines just as I'm doing. After that, use your ruler and connect that into a straight line. So the next thing I'll do is to come to my waistline, or my half length, that's the part label HL, and I'm going to mark half of an inch at both sides just the way I'm doing right here, and I'm going to mark this on all of these lines, just on my half length or my waistline, top length and the allowance. So from my bust point labeled BP, I came down by 1 inch, and I'm just going to connect all of these points, and watch how I connect these. So place your ruler like this, connect one side and go ahead and connect the other side. So you go ahead now and extend this your darts to your full top length, just the way I did here. So after this, now I just went ahead now to show you that part where my hand is actually my bust circumference divided into 4, so I take note of that. So the next, now I'll come to my half length and divide my waist circumference into 4, and I'm going to mark whatever I have at my half length. So on my top length, I'm going to divide into 4, and I'll also mark my top length at that area. So I'm just going to use my ruler and connect all these dotted lines which I've made here so far. So after connecting, I'm just going to use my curved rule to actually curve that sharp or pointy area, because nothing is meant to be sharp here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to replace my dart, and my dart intake was 1 inch, so I'm going ahead to replace it. You can see where I marked that, and I went ahead to connect right under my under bust. That's the line label UB. So after that, now I went ahead to add 1.5 inch from the beginning to the end of this dress, and that will be my stitching or my sewing allowance. So after marking all of that, I'm going to use my ruler and connect all of these dotted lines, and at that pointy area I'm going to use my curved rule to connect this, because it's not meant to be pointy. Okay, so this is basically what I did here. So after connecting right there, I'll just go ahead and now get my underbust circumference, and whatever I have, I marked it right there. So you see, in between that dot and the line, we have some space in between. I went ahead to measure it. I got half inch. So this half inch, now I'm going to be sharing it at both sides of this my dart already created here. So at one side, I'm going to mark quarter of an inch, and at the other side, I'm going to mark quarter of an inch. So altogether now I have half inch. So this is because I'm trying to tighten this my bust area. So just watch how I'll connect this. I'm going to connect this in such a way that the only parts where the quarter of an inch is present is at the under bust area, because this is actually tightening. Okay, so this is tightening and it's not going to affect this dress in any way. So go ahead and extend this or this tightening to the that legs at both sides. So this is just that, and you go ahead and cut out the rest of your already drafted basic bodies. So do take note that that neck area, the part I marked bad, that's the X, shall be cut off as well. So the part I'm cutting off now is my neck depth. So after that, I'll go and cut out for my armhole area. So after cutting down right now, I'll go ahead now to remove my dart intake, because remember that we are going to give the waistline a curve, so the dart is not needed. I'm done using the dart to for my tightening and the rest of that. So I'll go ahead and cut it off just like this. And after that, I'm going to use my masking tape, and I'm going to um close this dart area just like this, and I'm going to use my masking tape to tape this down. So after taping this down, now I'm going to come to that part where I had my exact body measurement and not the allowance. That line, that first line, is my exact body measurement. So I came down by half of an inch, and I'm just going to make a tiny line to connect the two the dots to the line, just like this. And I'll just make a little mark here, so it is going to be my guide for my curved waistline. So on the center piece of my paper, I'm going to come down by 3 inches. I don't really want this curve too deep, because according to my client request, she just wants it a bit curvy. So I just placed my curve rule from that area where I came down from half of an inch on into that point. So place this very well, and you are going to get this properly. So because I didn't place my very well, I had to place it very well again to do it. So extend that other line to your full body measurements by the side, and you're going to just cut off exactly the way I'm cutting off here. So I went ahead to bring another paper to draft my back bodies. So from the edge of that paper, I'll start by marking half of an inch. After marking this half of an inch, I'm going to use my ruler to connect this into a straight line. So after this, now I'm just going to get my basic bodies for my front, but before that, I'm going to label that half of an inch as my zip allowance, because that's actually what it is. So I'm going to get my basic bodies, and I'm going to make sure I pin this starting from that line which I marked on this other paper. So watch carefully, and this is how I pin. I left that half of an inch and I started pinning exactly from that line. So after pinning, I went ahead to trace out my front bodies on this other paper, which is under it. So I went out to trace out all the sides, the top and the bottom part, and every other thing aside the backs or the curved waistline. So I went ahead to straighten this and connect this to this other line, which is my zip allowance line. So for the back neckline, I'm just going to give this a bit of a curve, because I don't really want it straight since the front part is already too straight. So I went ahead now to give my zipper slope, and the next thing is just to cut out, and we are done drafting for the front and the back part of this dress. So I'll go ahead now and cut out on my fabric. So I have my hairstay, I have my lining and my ankara piece. I'll cut all of this out using my paper and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is it after cutting out on my fabric and ironing my hairstay to this fabric. Here is the front piece and here is the back piece, and I went ahead as well to also cut out for my lining. So my hairstay wasn't enough, I didn't iron to my lining, so do ensure you iron your hairstay to your lining. So I just went ahead to bring my front body piece and also one part of my back piece, and I'm just going to place them right sides facing each other, just like this, the two parts, and I'll go ahead and pin these two parts together, front and back. So right here I'm joining fabric to fabric and lining to lining. So after joining, I'll go ahead and stitch up using the 1.5-inch sewing allowance which I gave this dress while we were drafting. So after stitching that, this is what I have, and you can see that it's already looking nice already. So I went ahead to join this exact way for my lining piece, and here is my lining piece. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do now is to face my lining right sides facing each other with my actual fabric, and I'll go ahead and pin this together. So I'll pin this all around using my pin, and after pinning, you are just going to go ahead now to sew the top parts with the 1/2 inch allowance which was given to it while we were drafting. And for the zipper area part, please, you are going to make sure you use at least 1/4 inch or less than 1/4 inch, okay, so you don't take much space or allowance which you didn't actually give to this dress. So but for the upper part, make use of 1/2 inch, and for the top length, that's the base of this top, remember we gave it 1-inch hemming allowance, so that is what we are going to use. So because of this the front part of this dress, that is front basic body, is curvy, I am just going to use my chalk and mark 1 inch all around so that I can be able to get this perfectly, the curve, the shape and everything. So this is why I went ahead to use my chalk to mark this out first. So after all of this, go ahead and stitch all of these parts, and this is what I have after stitching. So after that, you go ahead and notch all this area, and you are going to turn this over from the armhole area. Sorry, I forgot to tell you guys that you stitch all the parts aside the armhole area, because the armhole area is where you are going to turn over from, okay. So from the armhole area, that's the two parts of the armhole, I never did anything. So go ahead and iron that properly, and I'll keep that aside. So here now I'm trying to draft out the sleeve pattern of this dress. So for the length of this sleeve, I'm working with a sleeve length of 28 inches, so I added extra 2 inches sewing allowance. So I'm going to come to the top, that's the longer part of this sleeve. I'm going to fold in by 1/4 inch first, and also 1/2 inch. I'm going to stitch this from beginning to the end. So this is what it looks like after stitching this. And remember I said that the longer part is going to be my sleeve circumference. So I went ahead to fold this into 2, and I'll go ahead and mark the elbow of 14 inches. So I'll make a mark here and extend it at both sides of this piece I have with me here. So after that, now I'm going to bring another piece of this same fabric, and I'm going to cut out a very long piece of 2 inches, and it's going to be 2 pieces. So after cutting this out, now I'm just going to get the midpoint of this piece which I cut out, okay. So I'm just going to get the midpoint of this piece which I cut out, okay. So I have 1 inch, so I'm going to make sure that that line which I marked there, which is the midpoint, aligns with the line I drew on my actual sleeve. So I'm going to make sure that it aligns, and I'll go ahead and pin this down together. So after pinning this down together at both sides of this piece, I'm actually going to fold in 1/2 inch. I'll make sure I fold in 1/2 inch on both sides, just like this, and you sew very close to the hem of that 1/2 inch where you folded in. So after that, I'm going to cut out my elastic band, and I'll make sure I pass this through all those channels created. So this is what yours will look like. Do it for all the sides. So for the top part that will be going to my shoulder area, I had to cut an elastic of 10 inches. My camera didn't get that part, and seriously I do apologize. I'm so sorry. So this is what it looks like after turning and all of that. And so the next thing I'll go ahead now is to fix the sleeve. So from that part, you can see that part where the armhole stops. I'm going to come in by 2 inches because I want this off shoulder crossing, like coming into the shoulder and not really off the shoulder. Okay, so it can be worn in two styles. So this is just how my clients preferred hers. So I went ahead to pin this down, and you'll watch how I pin this down, because you're going to pin and make sure that you stop exactly where the joining at the front and the back bodies took place. So you're going to stop at that joining area, but make sure that you pin. So flip this to the back part and also measure from the armhole inwardly 2 inches. You can as well measure in 1 inch or 2.5 inches or 3 inches, but it depends on how inside you want it to be on your shoulder. I hope you understand what I mean. So I'll go ahead and mark my 2 inches. I'm going to place my other end of my sleeve on the back part or the back area, just like this. So I'm going to pin the exact way I pin for the front basic bodies. That's my sleeve to the basic bodies. So after this, now I'll just go ahead and stitch this up. So I'll do this for the two sides, and I'll go ahead as well to also attach my zipper to this dress. So carefully do this and work with your pins, and you're actually going to achieve a very nice and fantastic result on this dress. So this is me pinning this because I really need this not to shift. I really need it to be in place. So this is what it looks like, and I'll go ahead now to stitch this up. So after the whole of this, I'm attaching my zipper just like I said earlier on, and I'll show you the outcome of this beautiful nice top, which is an off shoulder. So here it is, and if you can watch very well, you notice that this top doesn't really fit me because it's actually not my sizes for my client. So you can see the two-step puff sleeve. So I really appreciate you all. Thank you for watching and coming this far. If you're here to subscribe to my channel, please, I urge you to kindly do so. And so till some other time, see you guys on the same channel. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye.